Now here's a live look from Chicago as the Democratic National Convention kicks off today with President Joe Biden headlining tonight's events. Kentucky's Governor Andy Beshear also expected to take the stage. In a historic move, Biden will then pass the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the new Democratic nominee. Recent polling shows a significant boost in Democratic enthusiasm since Biden's exit from the race.
Kentucky is sending 59 delegates elected by the Democratic Party to the National Convention in Chicago this week.
The Commonwealth also sending 4 automatic delegates or alternates who are typically party leaders and elected officials, and that's including Governor Andy Beshear. New at 6, we caught up with one of those delegates who is in the Windy City right now. Last month, delegates from Kentucky's Democratic Party voted nearly unanimously to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris as the party's nominee.
But being here in Chicago has been a wild experience. We've gotten to see so many amazing people already before the floor even opens here.
Robert Connie is one of the representatives from Louisville. This is his first Democratic National Convention. He tells me there's some tight security around the event. Connie looking forward to hearing from Governor Andy Beshear as he speaks before a national audience tonight.
I really think he's going to put Kentucky front and center in his speech. You know, the thing is, so many people overlook Kentucky for lots of different kinds of reasons, for whatever reasons they have. I think they're wrong to do so. And I think Governor Beshear is going to be singing our praises, talking about the amazing work that he's been doing here in Kentucky and the amazing work that other Democrats have been doing here in Kentucky as well.
I'm going to be speaking tonight at the Democratic National Convention from this stage with a full arena, talking about how we've got to elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States.
Beshear posted to X this morning that he'll be sharing a message of, quote, hope, freedom, and unity. Connie believes when Kentucky's governor was floated as a potential Democratic VP pick, it helped elevate the state's notoriety.
I've been here, a couple days already. And whenever anybody sees that I'm from Kentucky, they don't say, oh, yeah, that's the state with Mitch McConnell. They say, oh, that's the state with Andy Beshear. And I think he certainly represents the future that I would like to see for Kentucky.
Some are using this event to highlight other causes. The Chicago area is home to one of the largest Palestinian communities in the country. Protesters have already started to gather outside the DNC, voicing opposition to the war in Gaza as well as other issues. The Kentucky Democratic Party told WKYT they were not releasing the full list of names of the delegates due to privacy concerns.
Well,